Welcome back, algebra students. We are working on problem number 3 for our Unit 6 study guide. All right, so let's go ahead and read the problem. It says, the height of a diver above the water is given by h of t is equal to negative 5t squared plus 10t plus 3, where t is time measured in seconds and h of t is measured in meters. Select all statements that are true about the situation. Well, first of all, I like to highlight the important information. I want to know that t is time in seconds and h of t is the height in meters. So h will be the height in meters. So now another important thing is that this is the expression or equation that we're dealing with. Okay. Next up, I want to know that I have to select all statements that are true. So that means there is more than one correct answer. Okay. Sorry, I was eating chocolate, by the way. So yeah, anyway. All right. So it says, A, the diver begins 5 meters above the water. Well, how do I know? The way I'm going to know things about this situation is I have to break down what each term in my equation represents. I know that the 3 represents the initial height of the diver. Initial height of the diver. Okay? The 10t represents the speed, the velocity or speed of the jump. And the negative 5t squared and the negative 5t squared is the effect of gravity. Effect of gravity. Okay, it's the effect of gravity. So, okay, now we can go ahead, pick out the ones that we know are true and pick out the ones that we know are false. Let's go ahead and look at A. The diver begins 5 meters above the water. Well, I already know based off this portion of my expression that the diver actually begins at 3 meters. So A is false. A is not true. The diver begins 3 meters above water. B is true. B is true. The function has one zero that makes sense in this situation. Well, we haven't really talked about zeros, but we have talked about zeros. I'll explain what zeros mean in a bit. So let's skip C for a bit. Let's look at D. The function has 2 zeros that make sense in this situation. Well, like I said, we have talked about zeros, but you might have forgot what zeros mean in this situation. Now let's look at E. The graph represents the start at the origin and curves upward. Well, first of all, by curves upward, it means that it's a regular U shape, right? A U shape. This graph is not a regular U shape. This graph is a upside down U shape. In other words, it curves downward. How do I know? Well, visually try to figure out how a diver is going to jump off. So he's going to jump off and then the graph goes in a downward direction, right? So that's one of the ways I know that the graph is going to curve down because it's following the path of the jumper, right? Next up, another thing that tells me the direction of my graph is this negative 5t squared. That negative, the negative actually tells me opens downward. The negative tells me that it opens downward. You know what? Let me just draw a line to the negative. That way you know what I'm talking about specifically. The negative tells me that it opens downward, okay? So automatically E is false. And not only that, if it says that it starts at the origin, that means that the diver is starting at 0. But we know that the diver starts at a height of 3 meters. So that one, you can automatically cross it off like twice. Okay? Let's look at F. The diver begins at the same height as the water level. Well, obviously, the height of the diver is 3 meters above the water. So that cannot be true. So that just leaves us with C and D. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the zeros. The zeros can be found with two ways. So zeros can be found two ways. And I'll write two ways. The first one, X method. X method. And the next step, quadratic formula. Whoops. Through the quadratic formula. I'm going to go ahead and let you know that the X method does not work. There are no two numbers that will give you 15. So let me go ahead and write out the X. The X would be A times C and then B down here, right? It would be negative 15 and 10. There are no two numbers that when you multiply them give you positive 10, and when you there's no two numbers that when you multiply them give you negative 15, and when you add them give you positive 10. There are no two numbers. So this does not work. You would have to use the quadratic formula. I'm going to go ahead and let you know that this problem has two zeros. When you use the quadratic formula, you should get two answers. There's two answers. Two answers. One should be like x is equal to 2.98 something. And the next one should be x is equal to negative 0.97 something. There's a lot of decimals. Okay? Double check it by using the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is posted on the door, on the board by the door, okay? So go ahead, use that quadratic formula, try to see if you get those same answers, okay? So that is it for this problem. If you have any questions, please let me know, okay? See you in the next one.